Have you ever wondered what makes a weapon bad in Team Fortress 2? Who's one to say something good or bad? Shouldn't it all be a matter of opinion or personal taste? Today, I'll be diving deep into how some weapons can be more efficient than others, from an objective and strategic standpoint. I'll also uncover some common mistakes many people make when it comes to judging whether a weapon is good or bad. There is a total of 156 weapons in Team Fortress 2, but some stand out more than others, with some being considered godlike and others, well, kinda just horse. No! Now you're probably wondering, why is that? And to be quite honest, I've wondered the same thing myself. For example, how can something as amazing as the black box be considered worse than the stock rocket launcher, when it does the same damage and also gives you health when damage is dealt? Simply because a weapon has an upside doesn't mean we can ignore its downsides. This one of course being the one less rocket in the chamber. This one less rocket can cause you to lose fights and can even make some rocket jumps impossible without that extra rocket. Even with the healing factor you get from this weapon, the black box is still considered a good weapon, and paired with the Conjurer, it can be used to create an immortal soldier loadout. That's not always the case though. Certain weapons have such horrible stats and sometimes almost no upsides at all. No combination of weapons can make them effective. Great example being the Righteous Bison. As we can see here, does not require ammo, projectile penetrates enemies' targets, projectiles cannot be deflected, deals only 20% of damage to buildings. Wow, how can this go wrong? All I have to do is just not use it on buildings, and I should be fine, right? Team Fortress 2 has this thread where for some reason, if it sounds cool, looks cool, it's probably the unicorns of letdowns and is too good to be true. Look at the damage that the Bison deals. This weapon deals a total of 24 damage to players and 4 damage to buildings with maximum ramp up. Oh, but what about crits? A crit from this weapon only does 60 damage. Now if we compare that to any of the shotguns, let's just say stock for instance, it will do around 90 damage. And a crit can do double the damage depending on how many pellets are hitting your intended target. But that's just an example of particular weapons being better than others. Now let's get into the good stuff. One of the biggest examples of what makes a weapon good is usefulness. Let's do this for example. Weapons need to go through a series of tests for it to be considered good. One of them of course being DPS. This one is pretty self-explanatory. DPS is referring to how much damage can a weapon inflict over time. The term DPS in video games is an abbreviation of damage per second. A weapon that does low damage but has high firing rate can sometimes be more effective than weapons that shoot slowly and does a lot of damage. This can be determined by things like skill and the weapon knowledge. Can it deal 105 to 112 damage in one hit like a rocket? Or can it deal 300 damage in a few seconds like the minigun? Higher DPS means more kills for your team, which translates to more wins for your team. The second test for a weapon to be considered good, I would have to say would be skill. Skill meaning, can you improve with this weapon? Does this weapon have a skill gap that allows players to grow as they get better with it, adding on more tech and survivability to a player's arsenal, allowing his or her team to perform better? Items that have some sort of skill gap tend to be used more because players strive for the improvement aspect and can always be one of the most satisfying feelings a weapon has to offer in Team Fortress 2. And finally, of course, we have results. Now, this can be a very vague term to use. How frequently is a weapon used and how effective is it in contributing to your team's victory? Can this item be extremely multi-purposeful? Let's say we have the sticky launcher. This is a top tier weapon, one of the best items in the game in my personal opinion, and it can pump out damage very easily. It can create traps, stopping enemies' pushes, and maybe even push them into smaller corridors, allowing you to do even more splash damage. It is also extremely traversal due to the sticky jumping aspect that you can get from this weapon. The sticky bomb launcher matches all three of these descriptions of DPS, skill, and results. Well, maybe not so skillful. Sometimes you can sort of sit there and spam left and right click and yeah. That's not important, I promise. You can still learn a lot from an item like this. The sticky bomb launcher can be used viably in almost every single game mode. Now, I'm gonna get serious here for a second, okay? Bear with me. The best and worst items in Team Fortress 2 are stock. Nah, I know. Hold on, man. What'd you say? What'd you say over there? Bro, I sound crazy doing this. But how can stock be the worst and the best? That doesn't make sense, right? The rocket launcher, the pistol, and the scattergun, in my opinion, are the best weapons in the game. The fire axe, the fist, and the syringe gun have to be the worst. Oh yeah, first thing, by the way, I'm trying to do some events with my community very soon for some videos, so if you want to be a part of those, join the Discord down in the description. I will see you there soon. I love you. Thank you. Subscribe. Join the Patreon. Thank you so much, Shy Guy, for editing the script. Thank you. Let's start off with the Scout and the Scattergun. The Scout is the fastest class in Team Fortress 2 with a double jump, amazing flanking attributes, already making it a fantastic class, and also adding on a skill gap with a huge learning curve to this character, making him more fun and versatile for the team. The scattergun has 6 bullets, each of them being able to do 105 damage with a full meat shot, making his class and stock primary already a top tier character and attribute to any team composition. Now for the bad stuff. I'm gonna talk about the medic here for a second here mainly, but we'll get back to the needle gun later in this video.
You are all so ugly!
Medics and healers are by far one of the most helpful characters in any video game, but for now, we're just going to be getting into the one from Team Fortress 2. I believe one good medic can make a huge difference in any match, with all his mediguns being great. And only real men know that the Vaccinator is truly a top tier healing item, but that's besides the point. Let's get back into talking about the syringe gun. I don't think the medic has any bad items, but one of them I still hold a deeply rooted hatred for this to this day. This hunk of junk right here. It sounds good in theory, I know, but let's look at the stats before we jump to any conclusions. At maximum ramp up, if you were standing directly in front of the enemy, this weapon will do 12 damage per needle. With 40 syringes in the magazine, this sounds good until you compare it to every other weapon that the medic has. The Blutsauger, for example, does the same damage and heals you when you do damage to enemies. The only downside to this weapon is that your passive heal is a little bit less. This has never really been an issue for me. I haven't had many times where the overheal has saved my life and where I can't just start shooting. I don't know, maybe my medic skills are just on top, but like I've talked about previously, this weapon doesn't match these categories very well. The damage is good, sort of. The downside being is that it doesn't shoot fast enough to be considered crazy good. I guess you could sort of count it as a skillful weapon because you sort of need to predict where your enemies will be. But the only thing is the range is mediocre. When the enemy is slightly far away, the rampant breach is its lowest point, only dealing 5 damage per needle. And for the results, it's not looking so good. No one is using this weapon. It doesn't win games because if you're a medic, you should be healing and focused on helping your teammates survive. But literally ask anyone who plays medic and they will all tell you the same thing. Do not use the stock syringe gun. As soon as you unlock a new item, it should be switched immediately. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I like these weapons. I don't like these ones. You don't need to agree with me. Subscribe. And thanks for Undead for subscribing to the Patreon. Love you, buddy. Mwah.